But first tonight, a story that we want to focus on, a story that may not be making the headlines in most newspapers, but is certainly making the headlines today on social media and is our top story tonight. An anti-woman diktat by Kerala's revered Sabrimala shrine has sparked outrage on social media and beyond. Days after the chief of the temple called for a machine to keep a tab on menstruating women, a 20-year-old student, Nikita Azad, has now written a hard-hitting letter to the chief of the temple. This after a controversial statement by Prayar Gopalkrishnan, who recently took charge as the Devaswam board president, said that women will be allowed to enter the famous Sabrimala temple only after a machine to check their purity is invented. Following this bizarre comment, Nikita slammed temple authorities for promoting what she calls retrogressive, barbaric and misogynist customs. In a letter, Nikita said, and I quote, "I've heard my mother say that women don't enter temples during that time. I'm shattered to know that for one of the biggest historic temples in India, bleeding is a sin." She's also started a hashtag campaign, Happy to Bleed. And we spoke a short while ago to Nikita Azad, who wrote that open letter to the Sabrimala temple authorities, and we began by asking her what had made her write this letter, which had now gone viral. Listen in.
Actually, I belong to a Hindu family. My parents have never taught me that I have to do something exceptional during my menses or during my periods. So it was really shocking for me to read such a comment when we are living in 21st century and when we talk about development of India. It was very surprising. That is why I decided to write this letter.
But are you aware that there is a history to it? There are religious beliefs involved. How do you respond to those who will say these are religious traditions in this country?
Yes, I am, but I think society is bound to change, and change is a constant concept. Society has changed over the ages, so religion also needs to change. There were many things in our religion like Sati Pratha, Devdasi Pratha, which were subject to change, and this thing also needs to change.
Are you suggesting then somewhere, Nikita, that in your view all women should be allowed into Sabrimala, that there cannot be this discrimination on gender grounds anymore?
Yes, I am suggesting that route should go, and along with it all the patriarchal practices or gender discriminatory practices which exist in our society should go.
What reactions have you got though? Since your letter went viral, what are the kind of reactions that you've been getting?
Well, I think I've got a good reaction from progressive section of society, especially from my friends and my age mates from Bangalore, from Mumbai, from Delhi and from different parts of India. It was a very good reaction. They actually support the movement, and that is why the movement has gone viral on social media.
Do you intend to pursue this further now that you've written this letter? Do you want to take it further, make it some kind of a cause to ensure that women finally are allowed to enter the temple and worship like any man would?
Well, actually, I like to write. That is what I've done. I was very furious at the statement. I was also saddened. So I chose writing, and that is why I think I will do later on also. And I have my friends, and we have started a campaign, Happy to Bleed, on Facebook, which you must have seen. So I think we'll pursue the campaign there, and people will decide what I'll do next. It's not just me involved now. There are a lot of us, and everybody will decide. There are two groups actually in our society also. There are two kinds of ancestors also. One which say that we have to follow everything, and one which have always stood for the people. And I think people will choose with whom they want to stand.
Thank you very much, Nikita, for joining us. You've sparked off this debate, and it's a good debate to spark off because it really is an attempt to change what is really an archaic and discriminatory tradition. Joining me now, though, is it time to do away with the tradition where menstruating women are not allowed inside the Sabrimala temple is the question I want to ask. Joining me now, Rahul Ishwar. He's someone who's been closely associated with the Sabrimala temple over the years. Juhi Chaturvedi is a scriptwriter, someone who's earned fame for films like Piku, among others, where she's taken up social issues. Urvashi Butalia, publisher and women's rights activist, joins me. Also joining me is former chairperson of the National Commission for Women, Purnima Advani. We hope to be joined by actor and politician Khushbu in a short while. But I want to come to you, Rahul Ishwar. Which world are we living in? 2015 or the 18th century? What is it that prevents a menstruating woman prevents her from getting a darshan at Sabarimala? Why should you have a scanner, as the chairman of the Sabarimala board trust seems to be suggesting? The temple priest clearly seems to be living in some kind of dark medieval age.
Radhivji, let me start by appreciating Nikita first. I think that kind of activism is right. She should go on questioning so that she can find better answers. Second thing, Sabarimala tradition doesn't discriminate women. Even the name Sabarimala comes from Shabari, who is a female devotee of Lord Rama, and there is a Maligapuram Pratishta. Three, Sabarimala has a 5,000-year-old custom. Similarly, there is a Sabarimala of women called Atigal, where men don't offer Pongala. Many a times it is looking with the prism of discrimination, you feel that there is subjugation of women. For example, nobody complains about the lack of Pongala by men in Sabarimala for women. So please don't look with Indian customs and culture with a Western prism.
No, this is not a Western prism.
You will find...
Where is the Western prism? Why should a priest be putting in place a system where he is effectively saying that a machine should be there to check whether it is the right time for a woman to be allowed to enter the temple? That is prima facie discriminatory. Now, you're going to go back in time and say this is culture and tradition. But even every tradition, every custom must change with times.
Just because something is followed for centuries, it need not be right. And just because something is followed for centuries, it need not be wrong either. We have to see the reasons, the rationale, the spiritual, the cultural content in it. For example, this is a book written by British, 1812, where they point out it is not because of menstruation or blood or woman. It is because the deity or the Ayyappa, there is a Naishtika Brahmacharya, a celibate. That's the reason why young women are kept out. We should see these as differentiation and not discrimination. There are many temples which don't allow men. We don't see them as men discrimination.
We worship
this is differentiation.
You say Ayyappa is a celibate. We worship Lakshmi and Durga in this country. Now we say women need a purity check because Ayyappa is a celibate. But respond to that, Urvashi Butalia. Is there an argument to be made that this is a Western prism that we are trying to look at this issue with?
No, Rajdeep, I don't think there's a Western prism. If anything is Western, it's the scanner that they're hoping will be invented. After all, scanners were not born 5,000 years ago. This is nothing but sheer discrimination. I do also want to commend Nikita. It's great, Nikita, for your courage in doing this. And I want to say a few things. One is there's nothing Western about it. Secondly, religions did not prohibit women from entering temples on the basis of impurity. For those 4 or 5 days in their lives, it was believed that women became extraordinarily powerful, and therefore they were put together in rooms to give them some rest, in some ways to contain their power, because there was a kind of fear of women. And I'd like to suggest to the temple authorities that, you would be much better off possibly preventing a scanner that could scan how many men had raped in their lives and how many men had coercively had sex with their wives, and maybe you might like to keep them out. Instead of discriminating against women, instead of going against the Constitution, and instead of giving us this rubbish about it being all tradition. There's nothing like that in tradition at all.
There is nothing like that in tradition. Juhi Chaturvedi, as a filmmaker, do you believe the time has come for contemporary culture in a way to, perhaps change attitudes? There are male mindsets out there. Maybe you need to do a film now looking at male mindsets, particularly those when it comes to our religious traditions that remain, unfortunately, today in various parts, not only biased against the lower castes and Dalits, but also, as we see in Sabarimala, clearly remain biased at one level against women.
I'm really amused at the bit of this decision that has been taken or in the process of being taken, because this is anything impure. I mean, it's definitely not impure. The reasons why women were not allowed outside house during the menstrual cycle was because of the hygiene condition. Women at that time were using cloth. These certain advanced sanitary protection was just not there at that point in time. we have far more superior quality protection now. Earlier walking out of the house could have been an embarrassment for women. Walking into a temple or in any public space could have been an embarrassment, and that is the reason she was probably asked to stay back at home. But there are gentlemen like Arunachalam who is probably providing sanitary protection to women in 1/3 the cost. They are giving freedom to women, and then there is this thought of, this thought that is coming up that women should not even step out of the house on these things. I mean, they are cutting their freedom, they are cutting their legs. What are we doing? We are really in 21st century or 18th century, like you pointed out. I'm actually quite appalled. And, all I can say is that, we need to, take a stance, and I really congratulate Nikita for this Happy to Bleed campaign, and I'm fully supportive of it. I mean, it's not about making a film called Wo Panch Din.
Right.
We really need to understand what really this menstruation is all about. Women stop menstruating only when they hit either menopause or they have conceived or they are going to have a child, and that is the time for those 9 months. All this menstrual flow is actually the nutrition for the life that is inside her. So by that logic, all of us have really started our lives from a very impure thing, and therefore none of us should go to the temples.
I'm just going to bring in Purnima Advani for a moment, because you've headed the National Commission for Women. We've seen these taboos existing across religions. It's not just Hinduism. They exist across religions. Women are discriminated at places of worship. Now, why don't... I have never seen the National Commission of Women take this up. It's not as if this has happened now. Sabrimala has a tradition. These are inherently discriminatory practices in religion. And somehow women's activists, particularly the National Commission for Women, doesn't seem to want to enter that area, because obviously you feel there's a religious dimension and you will get into controversy, and therefore you stay away. Why have women activists not taken this up more aggressively?
Rajdeep, I think you need to be better informed. National Commission had taken up this issue very strongly. I still remember at a Janasunvai in Virudhunagar, where scheduled caste women were prohibited from entering the temple. We had summoned the district collector. It was 10 p.m. when the district collector had come to the Janasunvai, and then the next day he had kept the temple open. We had said, you have to keep the temple open. There cannot be any discrimination that scheduled caste women cannot enter or scheduled caste men cannot. That was actually a caste issue, but we were representing women. And we said there is no way that you can keep women out of a place of worship. It is their fundamental right, and the fundamental right to religion
may be so,
implies
but it hasn't
that
changed,
they have to be
Dr.
entitled to
Dr. Advani, with due regard, in 2006, you might recall a Kannada actor, Jaimala, claimed to have entered the temple, touched the idol, a case was registered against her. I'm just saying the reality is very different, and I'm just wondering whether activists have really...
Yes, you are right. In that point, you are right. That we have to take up, this is a complete patriarchal mindset. This is total discrimination, and I condemn the fact that a priest should make any comments with regard to women's purity. I think purity and impurity lies in the mind of the beholder. It's the person who thinks impure who's impure. There cannot be any other criteria of purity. These are all physiological reactions of a body, and one cannot really classify them. And there is a speaker in your channel who just now said that this is because in the olden days the women were bleeding, they didn't have the benefit of sanitary napkins, they used to use cloths, and that was the reason. I have also heard that temples were in the past situated in the kitchen, and in order to tell women that, well, take rest, give your body some rest for 4-5 days, you don't have to toil and keep cooking those days, that they were told don't enter the kitchen. It had nothing to do with the place of worship. Later on, it transgressed into cultural norms and whatever it is.
Can I just for a moment,
ma'am? I do not appreciate what has happened, and I do agree with you that the Commission must take up these issues.
All three of you have virtually taken on much of what Rahul Ishwar has said. So Rahul Ishwar, you're seeing this. There is a general feeling among none of these women can be classified as Western elitists. Because my worry is you're going to break this down, in some way pigeonhole those who are questioning the Sabrimala as Western elitism. Let's not make this about Western elitism versus, rooted Hinduism. This is at the end of the day about the failure of a religion to keep up with the changing times. For rituals to keep up with the changing times.
Rajivji, two things. Purity, impurity and discrimination too lies in the eyes of the beholder. Second point, let us be very legal about it. Kerala High Court back in 1987 approved of this millennium soul custom because they understood the differentiation angle, and nobody answered my very pertinent question. 30 lakh, 3 million women offer Pongala at Shabarimala for women. No man offers it. Yet no man come forward and say this is male discrimination. Shabarimala for women Artigali is in Guinness Book of World Records for the largest congregation of women. No man comes there and says, see, discrimination. So you shouldn't look at these things through the eyes of differentiation, because many
I
times
am looking at it
when
from
you
the eyes
see
of
what you look
progressive
for.
women. I am looking at it from the eyes of progressive women. Women who want to express their freedom. You are restricting their freedom by saying today that a woman who is menstruating cannot enter the temple at a particular time. You are denying that woman her freedom. I am not looking at it from any other way but progressive mindsets.
I am requesting you to look at it from cultural sensitivity. India is a very diverse land. Do we have an absolute Western imposed homogeneity? And my simple point is, this is a court accepted practice. Right now it is in Supreme Court, where even Supreme Court upheld the system, understanding that this is only differentiation and this is not discrimination. That's the reason why I would...
Let me bring in once more Urvashi. Urvashi, cultural sensitivity is the word which is being used by Rahul Ishwar there. How do you respond to that? That this is the argument which is made, cultural sensitivity.
No, I think Rahul Ishwar is making a number of arguments. One of them is cultural sensitivity, and that argument is used all the time in I think very wrong ways. You know, it's like saying you can't float a cow sculpture up in the air because it's cultural sensitivity, which is everybody's cultural sensitivity matters except that of women. That's one thing. Secondly, he's talking about a High Court judgment. Judgments are not cast in stone. As we know from the judgment on homosexuality, that you can question them, you can appeal against them. Thirdly, he talked earlier about the god being celibate. Well, I think if a god is celibate, he can take care of himself and be celibate. It doesn't need... He's talking about cultural sensitivities in the eyes of the beholder. What about the eye of the god? Does the god look at women in the way that he shouldn't look? Then he doesn't deserve to be a god. And finally, I'd like to say that, you know, this is, this is all such a strange kind of argument. He's going on about Western things, and yet his sort of benchmark is the Guinness Book of World Records. How Western is that? And why are you so proud of being in there? And if the men don't protest, it's their problem. They should protest about being left out.
Okay.
And Rajdeep, one response to your point about, just a quick thing, why are women activists not protesting? I'm sorry, this is not the sole responsibility of women activists. It's equally your responsibility and all the other men who are around, because this is not a female issue only. It's
I agree, but when you have a state body like the National Commission for Women, you expect that they will take up these issues. That's where, will our political class, I'm joined by Khushbu, who's an actor turned politician. Why don't our politicians touch these issues, Khushbu, or do they also consider it sensitive? I cited the case of Jaimala, who was virtually ostracized, FIR filed against her when she allegedly touched the temple deity. Are these issues that politicians don't want to touch?
First and foremost, Rajdeep, I'm not here as a politician but as an activist, as a woman in first place. But to answer your question, yes, it's a very, very sensitive issue, and no party would like to touch the matter because it's really sensitive, especially when you come down to the south, the Kerala and Tamil Nadu and Andhra to an extent. The amount of Sabarimala Bhaktas we have here, it's a very sensitive issue, and it's not that it's new, it's been on for many years. It's an ancient problem.
So the politicians don't see this as an issue of sexual discrimination?
Not allowed to go to the temple.
So the politicians if Khushbu, the woman and activist, was to raise it with your political male colleagues, would they say that this is a woman, this is an issue we won't get into because this has religious undertone? That's what you're saying effectively.
This is a women-oriented issue, and yes, I want No. I'm saying we should talk about it. But the thing is, since the matters are in the court, and then we talk about Sabarimala, I think there are too many things which probably people not living in the South wouldn't understand how Sabarimala works. You have the best song, in fact, you say the God wakes up in Sabarimala by with the songs of our great singer Yasudas, but even he is not allowed to enter Padmanabhapuram temple. So these issues are there. You cannot say that these issues do not come up. They are there. We have been fighting for it. We women have been fighting for our rights. We women have been, as activists, we have been trying to say that everybody is equal in the eyes of the God, whoever
But
believes in God.
everybody is not.
So if the God says that everyone is equal,
Yes,
yeah,
clearly
that's
it
what
is
I'm
not.
saying. So
For
everybody
years,
is not.
lower
God does
caste
not say
people,
that these
Dalits were
women are
kept
not
out of
equal.
temples.
It's the men. It's the men. It's the men. They are the caretakers, the people, the human beings who say that women are not equal and they should not be allowed into the temple. I'm sure that no God has come forward and said that the women are menstruating, she should not enter the temple,
Yes,
or
but
should
no-
not enter the premises of a temple.
Yes, but-
I think this is the culture. It needs to change.
No
Then,
God-
it's not about temples alone. No,
no
Rajdeep, it's
God
not
for
about temples
years-
alone.
No
In
God for
South,
years
let
also
me-
said.
Let me tell you.
No, I take your
Rajdeep.
point. I take your point, but no God for years also said that Dalits
No.
should be kept out of temples. These were used by those who claim to be
Absolutely,
arbiters
we
of
have been
God.
fighting, and we have had even Periyar fighting for it, taking the Dalits and walking into a temple. We have had those issues. We have seen people fighting for it. But it's not about the temple alone. Unfortunately, even today, when you go to the rural areas of the South, or many areas of in our country, the absolute rural areas, the minute a girl is menstruating, she has been kept into a room away. She's not supposed to enter the kitchen. She's not supposed to come in front of men. Something auspicious happening, she's not supposed to come in the front. So it's not about temple alone. It's also there at home.
I take your
The
point.
minute we change our mindset about how we treat women at home,
You know that-
so we need to change the outlook as to it starts at home. Only then comes a temple.
How would you change outlooks according to Juhi Chaturvedi? Does cinema have the power? Does popular culture have the power? For years, Hindi cinema also conformed, it appeared, to regressive stereotypes, and an entire younger generation of directors, writers like you have tried to change it. But do you believe that that we need to change look at the way our television serials are? Most of them seem to, in a sense, almost embrace these old customs, whether it's Kadwa Chauth or whether it is, in a sense, they seem to like to conform to a particular idea of the woman.
You know, I think we as a country are somehow really enjoying this regressive state. I mean, anything like that happens, whether it's in TV serials, just look at the TRPs. You know, all those serials somehow, for some reason, are the most viewed serials on the prime time, and you see the advertising that is happening on those serials just because of their TRPs. So somehow, I sometimes do feel that as a nation, while we have moved into 21st century, we are still regressive in our minds. I mean, yeah, TV has a great. I mean, media
So why
has
not
great
change
power,
it?
film industry
Do you
has great
believe-
power,
do
directors,
you
writers,
believe-
we all can come
Can it
together.
be changed?
Of course, of course. You know, it'll be one step at a time. It'll be one film at a time. I don't know. You know, sperm donation, sperm could have not even been spoken, so loudly and clearly in open spaces. But there was a film made on it, and everybody applauded it. So I think, it's a matter of taking risk and being, very passionate about it, and actually going out and doing it. Because if it matters to them, it will change. I definitely believe that film has that power. Cinema
But
has
look at
that
what
power
our
to
courts are
change.
doing. Look at what our courts are doing, and our courts seem, and there, to that extent, Rahul Ishwar is right. Our courts also seem to be stepping behind, seem to be one step behind society, and that worries me. Purnima Advani, you've also been a lawyer. A quick response to that. Do our courts also need to change? Judges have in the past given
Rajdeep,
verdicts
you're
in favor of the
absolutely-
Sabarimala
courts-
discrimination.
Judges are, after all, from the same society, and there is a lot of patriarchism that one has seen even in the judgments. But of late, the Supreme Court has been coming up with certain judgments which have been progressive. One can only hope that there is a greater gender sensitivity that comes into our judiciary,
Right.
and they understand what are the requirements of today's women.
So you're
and in answer to your question, whether media itself, yes. Media plays a positive role, but it's a holistic approach. Right from education to empowerment to employment, all these factors are going to ultimately bring up the modern woman.
I
who is
want to
going
stick.
then stand
I want to
for her
stick.
own right.
But you are making a point about judges not being gender sensitive. Rahul Ishwar, when will people like you closely connected to Sabrimala also get gender sensitive. You know, you are bringing, the only argument you brought to me is that there are other temples where only women are allowed, or only women go, men don't complain. That's a terrible argument to make. And you are resorting to culture, tradition and saying we are all anglicized or we are all Western elitists. Those are all bad arguments.
That's the differentiation that many a times our mainstream North Indian media doesn't understand. You will be surprised to know there is an Islamic shrine inside the holy temple of Sabrimala. On the way, crores of Hindus go to an Islamic shrine called Babar Swami temple, pray there.
I am aware
of
it.
On the way, there is a Christian church. But many a times you fail to point out these positive things. And how progressive is that?
No,
is there
are
anything remotely there in North India that even remotely reflects this, where there is a shrine, in Islamic shrine inside a temple where Holy Quran and the sword of a great Muslim warrior is kept, and no idol is kept there. So this India is a very complex nation which cannot be understood by the prism of a very narrow Western.
Okay, again you will keep suggesting we are deracinated, Western educated, but I'm going to give a final word to you, Khushbu, then. This argument will keep getting made, that you are all Western elite, that you don't understand the rootedness of India, you don't understand what, you know, what rural cultures are, what folk cultures are, what South Indian cultures are.
No, we are very rich in culture and heritage, but that does not mean you move back into the regressive form. We need to progress, and the progress is not going to happen until unless we set our minds clear and say that women need to have the equal rights as men. And I in fact would like to say that Supreme Court, I defy if any judge would come up and say that women can enter the temple at any times. I'm sure it's not going to happen in a long
Why not?
long
It will
time
happen.
in our country.
I hope our judges are watching this program. It will happen. I presume all the four powerful women, all the four powerful women that we have had on this program, and maybe the girl who sparked it off with that petition, Nikita, needs to just take this to the Supreme Court. Let's test it out, whether our courts are willing to change with the times or not. But I appreciate all our panelists joining us. Happy to Bleed campaign is one that we endorse because we believe it is a step in the right direction. I appreciate all of you joining us on our program today.
Ni pa ma ga sa ni pa ma ni sa pa sa. जहाँ तक यादें याद आती रहेगी.